Journey IFC strives to create safe spaces to worship God. Know that you are welcome just as you are, regardless of religious background or lack thereof, skin color, political affiliation, sexuality, age, culture, or any other label you own or society throws on you. You are welcomed and celebrated here just as you are.
Hi, I'm Ace.
Hi.
Before we move into our scripture reading, we're going to take a moment to center ourselves in beauty. In a world that moves quickly and often loudly, beauty asks us to slow down. So get comfortable in your seat and allow your body to rest into the chair beneath you. If it feels right, gently close your eyes. Take a slow scan of your body. Where might you soften just a little? Now, bring your attention to your breath. No need to change it yet, just notice it. As you breathe in, imagine you are breathing in beauty. Light, color, texture, sound, all the goodness that surrounds you. As you breathe out, release distraction. Release hurry. Release whatever keeps you from noticing the sacred. Now, together, let us take one deep collective breath in and slowly out. May we be open to the beauty that is speaking to us now. Amen. Our reading this morning comes from the Jesus story called Matthew, chapter 6. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly parent feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your span of life? And why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will God not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Therefore, do not worry, saying, what will we eat? Or what will we drink? Or what will we wear? For it is the Gentiles who seek all these things, and indeed, your heavenly parent knows that you need all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and God's righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today.
Thou my best chaotic these days, am I right?
Yes.
It is hard to keep our wits about us as the next news outlet starts saying something again about how we're living through unprecedented times. It's like, I would gladly live through precedented times. It would be kind of nice at this point. But from like COVID to climate change to the ongoing wars around the globe to the division and polarization that we're seeing here in the U.S., even the Super Bowl was divisive. It all can be a bit overwhelming. And so that's why this morning we're doing something a little different, because today is our Beauty Will Save the World Sunday. Inspired by Fyodor Dostoevsky quote. I practiced that so many times, and I was practicing it in my head before I got here. So Dostoevsky was the 19th century Russian novelist, and he's regarded as one of the greatest novelists of all time. He's known for his philosophical insights and his ability to go into the depths of the sometimes dark parts of humanity, the hard emotions, especially through his storytelling. Some of his notable works are Crime and Punishment and The Idiot. And The Idiot being the novel our quote came from, which when I looked this up and I was like, Beauty Will Save the World, I was like, what is that from? And I was like, The Idiot? I was like, oh, okay, not what I was expecting. So I did a little bit of digging into the background of The Idiot and found some interesting context for it. So Dostoevsky wrote this novel in quite a tumultuous time in his life. He was kind of moving across Europe, was fleeing across Europe, running from debt collectors and kind of family members. They were struggling to find housing. Him and his wife, Anna, had just lost their firstborn daughter. Life was rough for him and his family. But somehow he still was this man who held on to his faith. That was very important to him. In fact, suffering became a part of his faith journey that actually shaped his story and shaped him and his life. He somehow could embrace the depth of humanity and suffering in his work and in his life. And so in his novel, The Idiot, Dostoevsky wanted to explore what would happen if a Christ-like figure were to show up today, to enter into the world that's as tumultuous as his world was. What would the life of a truly good man look like in a world full of suffering and corruption? Some say that this was Dostoevsky's chance to prove that Christianity and the ways of Jesus Christ were actually possible. It was kind of an experiment of his. And so the story reveals a perfect man, Prince Myshkin. And he is full of love and beauty, and not talking about like aesthetic beauty, but he has this deep found soul love within him that is beautiful. Prince Myshkin is set apart from the rest of this Russian culture that he's in, but he's set in contrast to them because he's somewhat childlike and has this innocence and compassion to him. He was a sensitive soul, and it says that he had epilepsy, much like the author of the book, and thus this all led to him being called the Idiot, because of his gentle ways of being. In a world of cynicism and corruption and materialism, those who embrace empathy and love and connection are often deemed idiots. When really they are some of the wisest people we have, as the book does reveal. And one of the recurring lines spoken throughout the novel that Prince Myshkin originates is this quote, "The beauty will save the world." It's a philosophical statement arguing that true beauty can and will transform even the harshest of things. That is what Prince Myshkin was trying to do. That's also what Jesus Christ was trying to do. Entering into a broken world and showing up in love and being considered an idiot for it. The phrase beauty will save the world is a calling. It's calling us to find and see and even be the beauty in our world, to help save it if we can. It means to show up in countercultural ways in hopes that our love, maybe the beauty that we put out into the world, will actually do something. Maybe it can change the world around us. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to let the beautiful things that we have made, be it art or photographs or poetry, remind us of the life-changing power of beauty. Things are tumultuous, as we know, in our nation. In our world, even here at Journey, things are up in the air as we prepare for this transition. I know my time's coming to an end here. I feel that weight And in all of these changes and all of the chaos in our homes and our lives all around us, it's easy to lose sight and to lose hope and to lose our sense of what is good and true in this world. But today we get to change that. We get to slow down and appreciate the beauty springing forth from this community called Journey. It's our act of resistance to the way things have been going recently. Funny enough, this week I stumbled upon a post on Facebook that talked about Fyodor Dostoevsky in a painting. And I was like, man, timing-wise, that works really well. The universe lined up for me. But this post had an image, which if you go to the next slide, you'll see. And it's called The Body of the Dead Christ in the Tomb. And this is a painting done by Hans Holbein the Younger, which is pretty haunting to look at. So in 1867, Dostoevsky encountered this painting at a museum, and it overcame him. He was transfixed by this work of art, because before him was an almost life-size Jesus laying there, with the marks of death on his body, mouth slightly open, his ribs visible, the skin already beginning to pale and collapse. It is Jesus in the most human of states. It's hard to see any divinity in this image right here. Just the marks of a life come to its end. And so Dostoevsky was so overcome that his wife actually had to pull him away from the painting. And it's even said that he was so in it that he pulled up a chair so he could get closer to the painting to see it. He was transfixed and utterly shaken by this art. If Jesus, a perfect example of humanity full of love and empathy and wisdom, could end up like this, what would that mean for the rest of us imperfect journeyers? Where was hope? Where is beauty? This moment of being overtaken by the body of the dead Christ inspired a scene in the book, The Idiot, when Prince Mishkin sees the same painting in this kind of gloomy room, and he says, and I quote, "A man could lose his faith just by looking at it." Clearly, this painting had done something to Dostoevsky. It became for him a symbol of humanity's response to a shaken faith. This painting and this story of the idiot helped Dostoevsky explore the discomfort and the suffering and pain of his life in the world around him. A quote from this Facebook post that I saw said, "The painting thus becomes an aesthetic metaphor for the human condition. If faith depends only on idealized beauty, it collapses before reality. If it springs from a love that insists on meaning even at the end itself, then redemption may still be possible." And this is the kind of beauty we are looking for. This is the kind of beauty that actually saves the world. Not a beauty that distracts, but beauty that calls us to engage more deeply with our humanity. Like God did as God embraced death and decay and violence as depicted in this painting. The beauty that saves is not polished or triumphant. It's an uncomfortable beauty, revealed even in the midst of the unraveling and the pain that we know so well. For Dostoevsky and his main character, this heartbreaking painting of Jesus meant that even our suffering was embraced by the divine. And it meant that love can somehow overcome the suffering, and redemption and hope can still be found. It almost feels naive to believe in it, idiotic even, as the book would say. But maybe beautiful people like us who are foolish enough to believe it can save our world. The scripture text that I had us read today comes from Matthew 6. And it's part of a big moment in Jesus' ministry, referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. And it's a moment Jesus is sitting on kind of a hillside surrounded by curious listeners, trying to explore complex and spiritual truths about nature and the soul and how to love one another better. And then he mentions the beauty that God has created. Kind of slows them down a bit. And he says, "Look to the birds of the air, or the lilies of the field. maybe even the grass blowing in the breeze. Jesus is saying, stop and look. When we are stressed and worried about what we will eat and drink or how we will live our lives, we become so preoccupied. We miss out on the life happening right before us. Trying to retain control over a life we have very little control over. And Jesus says to look for those pieces of beauty springing forth around us, God's creation, and see how all of it is provided for in its own way. The grass is beautiful while it lasts, but at some point it is thrown into a fire and it's burned. Even Jesus does not deny the burning. He simply insists it's not the end of the story. Life, death, and resurrection, the cycle continues on and on and on, but Jesus is calling us to slow down. Worry just about today's problems. Stay present to even the beautiful things happening around you, instead of getting caught up in the noise and stress of life. That's easy to say, hard to do, I'll say that. But God makes beautiful things, including all of us today. And we are encouraged to live into our divine image and to create beautiful things just as God did. Be that art or poetry, or even a loving conversation with a friend going through a really difficult season. We are called to be co-creators of beautiful things alongside God. We can bring beauty into this world that is on fire. And I know that beauty alone won't solve all of our issues, but maybe it can help us slow down and notice where God is being revealed among us, and then maybe be inspired to continue on in our pursuit of love and beauty and connection. We're about to enter the season of Lent. This is a time traditionally used for spiritual discipline and preparation for Easter. It's the 6 Sundays before Jesus' big party. When we retell the 40 days of the wilderness, when Jesus is tempted and tested, and his faith is hard to hold on to when he's out there hungry and starving. We know that the story ends with him coming into town and having his triumphant entrance, and then a week later he's killed. This is a time, this Lenten season is a time when we can turn to the harsher realities of life. As it says, for we are from the dust, and to the dust we shall return. It's a time to embrace the depth of humanity, the suffering along with the anticipation, as we await the morning where the dead body of Jesus Christ is returned to its lively beauty. When the chaos is overcome by some idiotic hope ringing true. So this morning we are going to look to the lilies of the field, the beauty we have crafted and created and are now sharing with one another, to be reminded of ways God has already showed up for us and through us, and to allow beauty to reshape us in the world around. So when you share your art, you are helping us resist the uncertainty and the suffering that we feel. You are gifting us with a reminder that God is pursuing us and connecting us and encouraging us to be countercultural and to love and to have compassion and beauty despite all of it. Because beauty will save the world, not by avoiding the hurt, but by refusing to allow it to keep us from showing up in beautiful ways. So may we share our beauty with one another this morning, and may we carry it beyond these walls into a world desperately in need of it. May it be so. Amen. So, like I said, I texted a lot of y'all being like, hey, if you have any cool art or anything you want to share, we can do that. Does anyone want to be bold enough to start us? Susan, well, yeah.
You know Susan well.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Hi, Susan. Okay, so Vicki invited me to do a Zentangle class, and so I did this during the pandemic, and it says stay calm and do crafts. And then this is another Zentangle thing that I did. So that was it. So, what Jacob asked me to bring was a poem, and this poem I wrote in the car, at least the beginning of it, when I thought Evie was dying. She was 10 months old, she was waiting for a heart transplant, waiting for a donor, and they had just told us that we couldn't go see her because they were going to put her on dialysis, and she was already on a heart machine and that respirator. And so I'm going, one more organ system is going, this is bad. So we decided to leave Dallas, drive home to Austin, and I started writing this poem, and I call it Uncertain Plans. There is this sprite, fairy, thought, flitting along the side, intermixed with every plan, promise, commitment that I make. While I want, intend, expect to make, do the plan, promise, commitment, another something might happen that is more important, supersedes, interferes with those plans. This is always true whether or not I realize, understand, acknowledge that this is the way life works. It is why we have these cliches, barring unforeseen circumstances, Allah willing, if all goes according to plan, if luck holds, God willing, and the creek don't rise. In certain circumstances, this life truth is understood, crystal clear, sure. The uncertainty becomes very real in extreme life situations, toward the end of a pregnancy, the end of a life. A donor organ becomes available for transplant. It feels like a limbo, a floating foggy space, a gray uncertainty of too many possibilities, in which I know any plan I make could be, might be, is hoped to be, unmade in the beat of a heart. And we did get a call that we had a donor halfway home. I am Claire.
Hi, Claire. It's good to see everyone. This is a poem I wrote probably a couple of months after October 7th, 2002. Years ago, I was a college teacher and I taught in Southeast Michigan, which has one of the largest Arabic populations in the country. And I wrote this poem remembering my former student and friend named Widad Rashad Shalabi. And we lost touch over the years, but when October 7th happened, memories happened too. Widad means love in Arabic. And the poem goes like this. Missing Widad in the world. Widad, half my lifetime ago, more than 30 years past, I taught you English, what I now know, to be the language of the colonizer, and you taught me your culture. You told me that funny story about you and your cousin Cawthor spilling the olive oil and slipping all over the place. You showed me pictures of you at the seaside with capris that go below the knees. And you said, this is how Palestinians go to the beach. And you gifted me those shirts with the 2 short sleeves. Above all, you taught me that your first name means love, Widad. I told you my first name, Claire, means clear and bright, and you wrote my name for me in Arabic on a long-lost sheet of paper. Today, I try to imagine feeling my fingers touching, tracing the curves and loops of my name in Arabic, desperately searching for a clear and bright direction to love. But the world today seems devoid of love and clarity, no charity, not even wanting to hear from this privileged, bright white woman whose unheeded cries for justice disappear into a deep void. Is it the same abyss from 30 years ago when thousands of us huddled in those pre-internet pockets of protest, spilling into the streets, shouting, no blood for oil? But if the truth is spoken and the Zionist media doesn't report it, did it really happen? While a baby Bush and his company distract us with all those lies of weapons of mass destruction? Widad, You told me about your dad's first marriage and how his wife couldn't bear children. So he divorced her and married your mom, a 14-year-old girl who knew nothing about where babies came from, but she would quickly learn and learn and learn again as she gave birth to 13 of them. And then she gave birth to you, whose name means love. And you told me, lost my place. And you told me that your dad had cried when he heard on the radio that his first wife had died. I told you about my 12 brothers and sisters from that big Catholic family. You taught me how Muslims do funerals like traditional Jews with immediate burial and no need for embalming and fancy coffins when a simple sheet will do. And I told you about my unusual and old-fashioned grandma's funeral, her body laid out in her big home, even though it was already the 1990s. And we did. You taught me about the shame and fear of going to the doctors in this country and arranged marriages in different degrees, and how your family let you have some say. And then I went home to my then liberal boyfriend, who today says decidedly he's Jewish, but he's not so sure about the liberal part because he thinks that Egypt should just take in all the Gassans who are forced out again and again. And you fed me. I still taste the food and the flavors, the hummus in the big communal bowl sprinkled with green mint you retrieved from your backyard, just outside that squeaky screen door. I would sit there at your table with you and your family, eager to eat, but self-conscious about my big honking fever blister. But then you would say, we don't worry about things like that, but you can have a separate bowl if you really want. And then I taught you how to drive, a dream you had. Did we go to the parking lot or the cemetery? Who knows? That detail doesn't matter. You lived with your brother. He taught economics at the same college where my dad had taught American history. And your Kuwaiti sister-in-law who would watch the news to learn about her brother captured and falsely accused of having an Iraqi flag and uniform in his yard near the border and given the death penalty. And then I learned that one of the U.S. religious leaders who helped overturn this cruel and unfair punishment was the bishop who confirmed me, doing what clergy are supposed to do, trying to care for the least. We did. You shared your horrifying dreams you had about Saddam Hussein, who was on the run. And I remember a picture by your front door of a person behind a stone wall. Was it a man or a woman? I don't recall. But they were readying themselves to throw stones if they had to. Back then I wondered, why would anyone have to throw stones? But I understand it now. The importance of self-defense, not in the sense that Israel has an exclusive right to exist, but in the sense, the real sense, the good God, no nonsense, that we are all human beings with the right to exist, to live, eat, breathe, each and every one of us worthy of life and love. We did. I remember your story, we did. Our stories, even if I forget some details. I taught you English, and you taught me love. But I wonder, where is the world's love now? Where is the world's we did? Are you buried under the rubble? Are you starving? Are your eyes vacant of life among the genocide? Do you have children, grandchildren, a husband? I'm sure love lives inside of them. If only we colonizers have given them their right to live. How do we reclaim our birthright names? How do we rewrite them? Because they've disappeared like on an Etch-a-Sketch, shook up too much over the years and denied out of existence like all those Palestinian towns. How do we collectively, clearly, and brightly show the world that you were born? I was born. We were all born, no matter what religion or God we may or may not subscribe to. We were all born in the direction of love.
So I brought two things today. One was a rock that I weaved on. I thought bringing something from nature and turning it into art would be something beautiful. The second thing was I decided to pick up a new hobby, cross-stitching, and over this past month, it's helped me clear my mind and keep it just calm.
Hi, I'm Lily. I made a little canvas, just based off of a waterfall landscape with the sky, and I worked really hard on the clouds and birds and that apple tree and a bush underneath. And I brought two things. That's the first. I also brought something I made from art that I did at school, and it's a duck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the new stitcher, 1, welcome. 2, all of you, especially those of you who have not washed your hands since you ate, don't touch the stitching. Don't touch the stitching. So, well, Emily's too nice to say that. I, on the other hand, will say, don't touch the stitching. So, speaking of, so y'all know that it's my stitching's all around the room, but this is new. Right side up. There we go. So this is original. All these other pieces someone else designed, but I executed. These I designed myself. So I actually made something. I'm so excited. And I've been taking little tiny baby steps in that direction for a while, and I finally actually took a real step. So I'm pretty pleased. I was inspired by the artist Mondrian, who does those, black grids with like just a pop of yellow and a pop of red, that kind of thing. And the idea is that it's an abstract representation of Texas wildflowers. So there you go. Yes, we're in hand run. Well, we were all just eating donuts and stuff and catches and things. Come on, man.
I had a sweet moment because the weekend was a little stressful for me, and after like 2 hours of meeting people at this new faith community, I was like, I need to go to the bathroom and I need to pee, but also I just need like a break for a second. And I walked out in the hall, and there was a print of a Mondrian, and I just was like, oh, Margaret. And I took a picture of it, and it just was like, I had that with me. I had crystals that Vicky gave me in my pocket, and Mary texted me, so it was just a sweet moment that made me think of her. I'll share mine as y'all are passing things around. So mine is a poem that was inspired by a story that Mary once told in one of our book studies. And she told me, like, someone should write a poem about it. And then I sat down and said, I guess that's me. I should do that. But the story, as I remember it, is that one time Mary was at a retreat of sorts, and they were asked to do some doodling. And if you know Mary, she's not one to do artsy things. It's not her she's a reader. She loves poetry, but she's not one to color. But she was, yes, exactly. She's a work of art. Her medium is not in drawing. But they were asked to draw, like, where is their church and where is God in it? And so she drew a little, crude drawing of a church and then put this thing above it. It was kind of a squiggle, and that was supposed to be the Spirit of God, It's in and among and around. And a nun came up and said, Mary, what is that? And she's like, oh, it's God. She says, no, that's a pink chicken. And I remember like, that's funny. And then I was like, ouch, don't diminish her art. Like, this was something that was vulnerable for her. And so I wrote this poem inspired by that. It's called God is a Pink Chicken. God is a pink chicken, drawn in earnest on the top of a page. Scribbled with her finest, slapped down by the ruler of a nun. Making God less than what she is. No, not a pink chicken, but maybe yes. Maybe God is that and much more. Like a chatty neighbor or an unexpected guest eating your cinnamon rolls. Or maybe God is a dead fish or a first kiss. A communal table with a broken dish. Yes, that is God too, isn't it? Why must we make God more or less than she is, when he is all that and more? My God is a pink chicken, and I hope yours is too. For if they are, then we share in our divine image, copied and pasted straight from the source. Imago Dei. Tell me about your God, and you'll teach me about mine. Show me her image, and he'll show up in me. A pink chicken scribbled on a page. Yes, that is my God too.
Well, mine is not a list or a piece of artwork. Actually, it's not a poem or a piece of artwork. It is a list. It's a list I created 20 or 25 years ago. I don't know where it is, if it even still exists. But it was actually two lists. At the top of the one was of God, and the top of the other was not of God. And I took a long time and thought of all the things I could think of that I thought were of God, and all the things that were not of God. And it was a fascinating process, and it was a fascinating result.
Are you going to share? Are you going to share examples of?
Oh, well. It's not anything secret. These were very long lists of God, were love and kindness and compassion and goodness and yada yada yada. Everything I could think of. Beauty was one. Truth. You can think of 100 things, adjectives and nouns that I would consider of God, and probably an equal number of things that are not of God.
So some of you know that I'm a quilter, and so I was thinking about quilts. My favorite quilts I've given away, and that actually made me very happy. But I'm bringing something to table, which is something that and it brings me joy. And so that's my gift. So that's my good deed. Thank you.
Doesn't have to be
I brought a painting. I dabble in watercolor, so I like to try.
You're pretty good.
The interesting thing about this painting is the day I was doing it, I had all kinds of workmen at my house. They were installing a new HVAC. I had people doing sheetrock work inside. So I kept stopping and starting and stopping, and it would dry out, and I would have to start again. But this is the end result, which I'll pass around. I love autumn, so these are just autumn trees.
Yeah, she dabbles, right?
Hi y'all, I'm Doug. Had some car trouble on the way to Journey today, so I had to wait for Claire to come follow me home. So I got home fine, and I decided not to do what I had prepared for today, which I would have been dancing for you. But I would like to share some food that I brought that comes from my childhood experience in France. One of the greatest things about living there is the food. So if you are still hungry, there's some almost warm scalloped potatoes from the table gratin. The other thing I'd like to share about France is I've been exploring what Mary Magdalene has meant to Christianity. There's some wonderful books out there right now, especially within the last 10 years. When I was about 10 years old, we went to Les Saintes Maries de la Mer, which is the delta of the Rhone River, the main river that flows through most of France and flows into the Mediterranean. The Camargue region is there. There are cowboys, French cowboys that make their living there. The people who have lived in the Camargue know legendary information about Mary Magdalene. And she has a grotto up in Pyrenees Mountains where there's a community of Dominican friars that are taking care of that grotto where Mary Magdalene spent most of her life after she reached France, after the crucifixion, for 30 years in recluse, where she probably wrote her Gospels, the Gospels of Mary, which is information about Jesus of Nazareth that has been kept from the greater knowledge of the world for 2,000 years. The joy that I have to share with you is that it's amongst us today. And it is so inspiring to realize that. Thank you.
Hey y'all, okay, I'll try to be quick. I take a lot of photos, and like the beauty part for me with photos is like the love that I get to photograph. And you know, weddings are cool and everything, but the longevity after that, and not just longevity, but like the quality of that longevity in a love is so beautiful to photograph, and especially when it's intimate and it's in their private space, like their home, and I'm invited in to capture like the beauty of being present, like not posing, although that, you know, that trickles in, but the real beauty is the raw moments that are happening, and I get to just capture that in a moment and have it documented. So I just wanted to share a few of the photos that I took. You may know this person. She's currently sitting in Journey right now with us. So I didn't really think ahead of how to do this correctly, so let me I'm gonna kind of start at each end and just like camera. You guys can take a look. Actually, down to this. I'm gonna just I only have 7, like I said. So feel free to pause around. Like again, like being a witness to people being present with each other and sharing love to me is so beautiful. And we often shy away from having our photo taken. Honestly, the older we get, and if we're not a certain weight or we don't look how we want to look. But it's after the fact when you see these pictures of yourself, and it's like, to me, that it's the beautiful part of all of the imperfections. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. So anyway, I just wanted to share that one. Jacob texted me a few days ago and was like, hey, do you have anything you want to share? And this was honestly the very first thing that I thought of, because to me that it shows so much beauty and in the love, and I will always remember that. And it's really hard to be hopeful during this time, especially during this time, and I'm just grateful that just even slices of moments like this happen, and they happen every day, and we don't even realize it sometimes. So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Real life. I'm honored that a photographer with that much skill and experience wanted and came to us and asked if we would do that kind of a photo session with her. And I didn't know then what I know now, which was how far that I had Alzheimer's and that it was advancing. And now we will be moving in by March 12th, we will be moving into Westminster, into a 3-room apartment from that home that you saw, and the intimacy of our room that is king-size bed and all this extra space and all this extra beauty. And now we're going to have, 3 rooms, and it's quite a challenge. But this is this is something that I wrote as I was, Jim and I have been allowed to participate in an incredible choir called the Love Notes Chorus. And the whole choir is people with Alzheimer's, and they're a family member or a friend who is there with them. And so before we did our first performance that Jim and I were going to be doing with them, I wrote this. I wake sometimes so afraid, Alzheimer's brain telling me I won't remember my alto part in our Love Notes chorus. Rehearsals have been so fun, but I haven't been able to memorize my part for all of our songs. I love the songs, yet fears derange me like a fungus attaching to my brain. My usual happy state of being gone. God help me. Singing in chorus with choirs has healed me before. Mrs. Scoggins at Ray High School in Corpus Christi, a wonderful 100-voice choir director. And then Kurt Kaiser leading Baylor's BRH choir was magical. It was a magnificent experience. I got to tour with this choir all over parts of the United States, and the worst audience we had was the Southern Baptist Convention. They literally walked around like legislators do. When somebody's giving a speech, and you'll see the legislators walking around talking amongst themselves. But anyway, now comes Love Notes Chorus. We're serving a purpose, and it's extraordinary. Like in those other choirs, I'm part of something bigger than myself. When I find myself afraid I can't memorize the music, Alzheimer's fuels my anxiety and takes away my eager, joyous expectations. Fear replaces joy with dread. God, please bring my sanity back. Your perspective is truth. Mine is confused by fear. May the reality of the blessings I have, like Jim's love, sustaining me in so many ways, have more power than my imagined outcomes. One of the songs we were singing is called Somewhere in My Memory. Somewhere in my memory, make room for wonder and awe. Show me, remind me, you, God, are my hero, and you are the wind beneath all of our wings. Let our audience be lifted up with joy and tender-hearted pleasure, hearing inspiring songs. Somewhere in your memories, may you find what you need to remember today.
I'm Melinda, grateful journeyer.
I'm Melinda. This is Durwood Crocker. That was like 7 years before I was born. I found over the years great comfort in planning on how I was going to show up and deal with my mom and dad dying.
It doesn't look anything like I planned. What? And Durwood is, that's picture was 1 year before he found out that his cute girl he had a crush on was pregnant and very Catholic, and she didn't like him very much. And he was just nuts about her. And they got married, and as they said, had 4 more kids they didn't want, and my brother, who they very much did want, my little, which is a funny story in our family, but so that comfort I felt in the picture I painted of the hero that I was showing up for my siblings, that I was financially, mentally, physically healthy and able to be the shoulder, especially for my oldest sister. It pretty much raised us. I was going to be all these things. And then somehow I would be deserving of their love. Because I was going to do this great and they were going to be so happy. That Melinda turned out okay. Because it wasn't looking good the first 5 or 40 years. And so I feel so naked right now. And I've never trusted a group of people so much as I trust every face in here. My dad, I got a message. I haven't talked voice to voice to my siblings in about 3 years, about 2 years for my mom, and about a year ago I started reaching out to my dad again. I heard he had gone to a nursing home, and he had recently lost one of his last wife, and so I started talking with my dad and calling him and just asking him how he was, and my dad loves to tell you how he's doing. And he's got that trick where he'll ask you a question because it leads to the story that he wants to tell. And I am so grateful for this last year of conversations that I've had with my dad. And it's been a lot of listening. But what I want to share, the beauty for me, the love I felt. My dad, I was just the most creative. I gag saying it because I, at my core, don't believe it. Fascinating, generous, funny, unjudgmental, helpful person. And he loved that about me, and it was so painful to watch me drink my life away for years and years. And so 2 weeks ago when we were on the phone, and he's had another stroke, it's terribly hard to hear what he's saying. And I do, though. I close my eyes and I can hear his words easier. I can hear him say my name. And he needed to, we were about to hang up because he was getting really tired. He only had the use of one hand. He's staying in a place that they won't do that. It's a state-funded facility. They won't hold the phone to his head, and they won't go into his room and say, "Hey, your children are trying to call," or something like that. That is not part of the service. But he said it to me twice. his very stroke-ish voice, do you forgive me? And I laughed. I said, Dad, I forgive you. And he said, can I forgive me? And I said, you can forgive you. And when he said that, I flashed on one of the things we did here where we were handing each other bread and doing a blessing to the person behind you to say or not say anything. A woman handed me some bread and said, you are forgiven. And I mean, woof. It just, that was a beautiful experience. Hope to be able, he asked me if I forgive him, if it was okay that he forgive himself. And asked, do you think there were times where Kristen, Josh, John, and Todd will remember that they had fun with me? And I said, Dad, I have a story about each one of them. Do you want to hear them right now? About a fun story they had with you that they remember. And he kind of laughed and he said, no, I'm too tired. So I just told him my story. And it was my third birthday. It's my first memory. And we had Kentucky Fried Chicken on the table, and we grew up a very poor family, so this was a huge deal. And it's when they had those big buckets. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember, they used to have barbecue chicken in these huge buckets. And it should have been the happiest moment. My favorite food in the world was right there in front of me. And I couldn't stop crying. And I remember trying. I remember not the words, but the wanting to stop crying so that I could get the looks off my family's faces to go away. I remember feeling very uncomfortable, that they were uncomfortable. And my dad picked me up, and he told me later, because he remembered this. It's the most beautiful thing. Only one other person had ever done this with me, and he asked me what was wrong, and I said, I can't stop crying. I don't know. I'm sorry, Dad, I'm sorry. And he said, that's okay. You get to cry on your birthday. I guess we're crying on your birthday. Something along those lines. And he remembered holding me. And he said, I remember your squishy, fat little arms and just holding on to those and being on my hip. And him telling me it didn't matter why, that it was okay just to keep crying. And the only other person I got to do that with was Natalie, putting my head on her lap and crying and not having to explain why. And feeling safe enough with another human being that I could put my head on their lap and just be soothed and not fixed or changed. And that is my art and my beauty. And I am my dad's art. He did some good work. There's 5 people walking around Earth that are, and he got to talk to me sober. And I'm going to remember grieving my dad as a sober woman. I'm not going to have to ask everyone, did I show up? Did I make it all about me? Was I drinking in the bathroom? I don't have to do any of that. I just can be and experience this. And it sucks. And I'm so grateful to be sober going through this. And there's not going to be a memorial service. This is me sharing with my family that I'm going to miss my dad and asking that you guys throw your prayers on him. He has no more fluids or anything. He's hasn't opened his eyes in a few days, so today, tomorrow, and the next couple days, just for his peaceful release. And thank you for letting me have this moment. I didn't know I was going to get it. Thank you.
So I had more objectively beautiful things to share. Like I have 30 more of those at home. But this is what I'm working on now. It might be done And it's funny because I was thinking about the book of Matthew already in reference to the assignment, because from the Sermon on the Mount, but not the part that we read, but the part where he says, you know, when you pray, just go into your closet and pray. Don't go around praying in public. And there's this refrain that I think is really funny, because he says they have their reward. Like if you're fasting and you go around and you pretend like you're hungry, Jesus says, well, they have their reward. And I think when making art, there's this weird thing where there's a front part of the brain where I'm like, this will show them this is good, I'm good enough. And it's like very effortful. And the best stuff I've made comes from like when you get into the place where it's its own reward or something, or you're just with the color, or you're just with the whatever. And with this one is, I've been working on this for like weeks, months. And I'll just keep going and ruining it and feeling bad, and then I'll add more wax and I'll melt it more, and I'll feel. And then there's a moment yesterday where I'm supposed to be doing something else. I go outside, I start melting some crayons, and there's a moment. It's not perfectly beautiful. It's not the best thing I've ever made, but it's like kind of awake. Like I feel like it's looking back at me a little bit, and I feel like that's the criterion that I feel like is the one that guides me the most, because I'm not all that skilled. The painting part of it, but like being alive with it, being conscious to it, and then like being aware when it's like maybe awake enough for me to stop messing with
Okay, I'll be quick. I think I showed the last journal that I made, journal sketchbook, where I was painting and journeying, and I think I passed it around, and then I finished it, and I was like, what now? And I found this book, The Secret Life of Plants, and around the same time, my sister, the scientist, gave me like a huge stack of National Geographic magazines, and she was like, I've read them, I don't need them. And I was like, these are full, like, the coolest pictures of Earth, which is like the most beautiful thing to me. We can't throw them away, like these pictures are too good, and so I like cut up the animals and pictures that I liked and just started this project of like collage and painting every Sunday when I come here at Journey. And I mean, I'm happy with the paintings, but I think the beauty is, for me, the process. Like, and I'm so touched by Melinda's share. I'm like holding it together. But that's okay. Yeah, the beauty is that I'm delighted by it, and the process is so enjoyable. I think art it's meaningful when we share it with people, and people say, that looks great. But I think the like highest form of beauty is when you can like find it in your own self and enjoy with yourself. So that's what this is.
Wow, Journey. Wow. Thank you for everyone who shared today. This was just a wonderful experience. So, what I'm struck with right now is that a lot of us could use a little hope in our lives, and the whole world needs a little hope in our lives. And I think maybe we're being called to go and live like idiots this week, and to go find the beauty in the world, and just feel that hope that comes with the beauty that's being shared with us, that's all around us, and go out and share that hope with the people that we love and beyond. So, Journey, let's go live by these words this week, and praise be God.